Welcome, Wargamers, to a blast from the past, because I wanted to talk about one of the coolest characters featured in the grand opening of the Age of Sigmar. And so we're going to hop into our way back machine and introduce you to a Tzeentchian sorcerer named Ephryx. Now, I've done videos involving him way in the past, specifically the Realmgate War series, which you can see in the link down below. And if you're newer to Age of Sigmar, say the last 2 years or so, you may have missed this character altogether, and so I'll give you the briefest of summaries. But if you want the play-by-play of the action, go ahead and watch my Realmgate War series. It's old, have some grace, my god have I gotten better. The sorcerer we know as Ephryx was originally from a place in Chamon known as Denvrock, or at least that's where he gained fame as a leader during the Age of Chaos. You see, it was Ephryx who sacked the great city of Alexia, a massive hub of trade and crafting within Chamon. He was sly, a little paranoid dude, everything you think of when you think, a Tzeentch person. You got a third eye in the forehead, physically weak, yet immensely powerful in the art of spellcraft. We don't have a lot of detail as to why he sold his soul to Tzeentch specifically, but we know he sank to the depths of chaos hard. This is not a good guy. For instance, once he had a crush on a handmaiden in a city, and she refused all of his advances, right? He first offered her gifts and treasure and all this kinds of stuff, and then he just started straight and threatening her. And basically, she kept saying, no, I will not be yours, I do not like you. And so his response was to have her boiled in liquid silver and put up as a living statue in her own city. I'm going to go ahead and put a note here that this is not a strong way to find a wife. But if nothing else, he is very dedicated to Tzeentch, and so along his journeys, taking the realm of metal for the dark gods, he found something extremely interesting. So interesting that it may very well gain him the favor of Tzeentch and possibly secure a place for him as a demon prince for the Changer of Ways. Because like all these Chaos warbands, they're just roving around, conquering things, destroying everything in their wake. But he found something that made everything stop. So what did he find? Only the most powerful artifact in the realms. Galmaraz, the Hammer of Sigmar. During the Age of Myth and into the Age of Chaos, it's kind of a blurred, space between those two. Sigmar tried to go toe-to-toe with Archaon the Everchosen. It makes sense, right? If you cut the head off the snake, the snake being the biggest chaos army of Undivided there is, then you can effectively cut them off, in a multitude of ways in terms of leadership. They'll fracture and then they're easier to pick off. But you know how all of us nerds daydream about these epic battles and if we were in them, how amazing we would be at combat? Sigmar basically did that exact same thing, but he went through with it. And so he tried to do the old lightsaber trick, and just like in real life, it doesn't come back, right? So he throws Galmaraz straight at Archaon, and instead of hitting the Grand Marshal of the Apocalypse, he shatters into a million pieces. But we learn, very quickly, he wasn't actually fighting Archaon at all. What he was looking at was an illusion created by Tzeentch, and Galmaraz was sent flying off into the void. He threw his hammer at nothing. And that's why when the Age of Sigmar begins, Sigmar is without Galmaraz. Well, at some point, the hammer of a god, infused with his power and his essence, hits Chamon like a meteor, only to be found sometime later by Ephryx. Now keep in mind that at this point in the story, none of these factions have any idea what's going on, right? Sigmar thinks his hammer is gone. It wasn't originally part of his plan to take the realms when he reopened the gates. He just thought it was gone. Ephryx, on his end, has no way to tell that this is Sigmar's hammer. Its power and radiance is so intense that any chaos forces that look upon it are blinded and they get burned if they get too close. It's just intense purity. So it's clearly an important artifact, and more relevant to Ephryx, it's emitting a massive amount of energy. And energy is interesting because energy can be used. So at this point in his tale, Ephryx puts together a most devious plan, and this is where we see his true strengths. He can't move the hammer, right? It just hurts whoever gets near it. And instead, he builds a fortress around it. But not just any fortress. This entire structure is essentially a giant siphon, meant to absorb and channel the energies coming off of Galmaraz, essentially using this hammer like a generator, like a crude arcane generator. And of course, this place also acts as a traditional fortress. It has these big old walls. It has all the walls are filled with skulls. Notably, all of them are made of metal as if they were transmuted. And this is really where Ephryx stakes his claim in the realm of metal. But what is all this for, right? I said he had a grand plan and he's building this generator for power, but why? Well, he actually has kind of the most legit plan to take over the realms that I've ever heard. You see, Khorne dropped his troops into Akshi, and he literally wanted them to walk from city to city and kill everyone. And that's fine, but it's going to take forever, right? It's a long-term plan. Nurgle entered Ghyran and slowly corrupted huge swaths of the realm of life. Again, it's super slow, effective, but slow. Well, Ephryx's plan would cement Tzeentch's control over the realm of metal in one quick blow. Using this mysterious artifact as a power source, he intended to cast a spell that would point every single realm gate in Chamon towards Tzeentch's realm in the realm of chaos, essentially isolating the realm and having it consumed by the god of change. Now, there'd still be residents in Chamon, but the world would be effectively cut off, and the powers and twisting, changing nature of Tzeentch would have absolutely no resistance. Every single entryway becomes a demon door, essentially, and just demons and pink horrors and all these things are just pouring into the realm, and very quickly, like I said, it's one fell swoop because you don't have to walk from place to place. Every door points to Tzeentch. And I read that and I was like, wow, this guy literally, amongst all the heroes, quote unquote, that we met for Chaos in that first wave of Age of Sigmar, this guy has the best plan, right? Korgus Kull just was walking from place to place, picking fights and getting bored. Nurgle guys were just hunting for Alariel, but the realm still had a lot of places to be captured. And then there's Ephryx, who's just like, what if we just close every door and open it to hell? And I was like, that's pretty amazing. I love it. And I don't want to do a play-by-play of the events of Quest for Galmaraz, but I did want to point out the fact that the events that led to the fall of Ephryx were started by he himself. So, explain what I mean. The Stormcast Eternals land in Chamon, and like I've stressed, Sigmar took Galmaraz as being lost. The Stormcast were actually there to try and find any remnants of Duarden that may have survived the Age of Chaos. Ephryx, super far away, sees them, and in his paranoia, it kind of gets the best of him, and he gets kind of stuck in this loop of thinking, they're here for me, they're here for the artifact, I can't let them have it, even though the Stormcast have no idea what's there. Then, from far, far away, I can't stress that enough, he watches the Stormcast fight, and when they die, they arc up to the heavens in a bolt of lightning, energy. Ephryx sees more energy. And at this point, if he were rational, he essentially leaves the Stormcast Eternals alone. They don't know about him, they have no reason to go to this eldritch fortress, but since in his mind it's all about him, and of course they're coming for me, of course they're coming for this hammer thing, this weird artifact, he begins to scheme. He wants the first strike against this new threat to set a cunning trap for them, and so, using the power of that lightning, he can finally have enough energy for his big spell. And I just love this perspective, right? He thinks he's the hero, this favored servant of Tzeentch, and he sees the Stormcast Eternals as nothing more than batteries to power his fort. And so it's actually Ephryx who leads a little skirmish party to engage the Stormcasts, which then, of course, leads them to the fort. And this series of events is probably one of my favorite battles in Age of Sigmar lore, history, whatever you want to say. Or it's at least on par with my favorite, which is the Night Haunt assault scene from Wrath of the Everchosen. But the Stormcast begin a huge fight with a Tzeentchian spellcaster, Ephryx, who has hired a band of warriors of chaos led by a guy on a manticore. in this fortress that is changing reality around them. It's a weird read. I highly recommend it. When the Stormcast Eternals die, instead of their, lightning arcing up to his ear, it goes like a weird right angle and gets sucked into the walls. At some point, a mutilith vortex beast is set free, and it's, warping and mutating everything around it. It's this great battle scene that's claustrophobic and action-packed, and I just love it. Now we're going to fast forward a bit. Ephryx gets away as a winner. Basically, he teleports the entire fortress away, but now Sigmar knows of Gal Maraz, and the real hunt begins. The Stormcast track him down and crush him. Right before his death, Kairos Fateweaver, the Lord of Change chosen favorite of Tzeentch, appears to ensure that this big spell goes off without a hitch. At this point, Ephryx learns something very important about this spell, which I assume was taught to him by a Lord of Change. See, as he's trying to cast it, right, things are heating up, getting down to the last moment. Ephryx is like, I have enough power. I can finally do this spell and lock Tzeentch's realm to every gateway in Chamon. Well, as he's trying to do this spell, he begins to age rapidly. And by that I mean he gains a decade every couple of seconds. And it slowly dawns on him that he has been betrayed by either Kairos or Tzeentch or something therein, and that he just has fallen for this. And as his life force is dwindling, Ephryx curses the name of Kairos and strikes the greater demon at a pivotal moment in battle. His last words, this is super epic and something I love, okay? The dude's last words are, "You didn't see that coming, did you, you preening peacock?" Which is just if you're playing a Tzeentch player across the table, that is exactly how you address their Lord of Change. I love it so much. You preening peacock. And while his time in the mortal realms ended shortly after, it is made clear that Ephryx still exists. He was actually banished to the realm of chaos, exiled by Tzeentch for his loss of Gal Maraz and his failure to cast that huge spell. So backing up just a bit, why is this cool? Why did I take the time to talk about a character who A, is already dead, and B, his prime time, if you will, was way back when AOS launched? In my opinion, these first Chaos heroes had so much flavor, and I just want more from them. I mentioned two others before, so you had Korgus Kull, who was the corn guy, and he's still around, we just don't really know what he's doing. And then we had Torglug, who became Tornus. He has an epic story arc where he gets redeemed in the eyes of a god. I love that. And then we have Ephryx, who I believe has probably the smartest plan when it comes to actually actively conquering the realms. And I like that he was kind of the stereotype for a Tzeentch sorcerer, and that specifically was his downfall. He had this paranoia about the Stormcast Eternals. Ambition and arrogance made him see them as nothing more than batteries. But he believed he was the true favorite of Tzeentch. But in truth, he was just another puppet. And I don't know, there's just something about that when I was rereading the story for this notes where it's he could have just left them alone. But he couldn't. In his mind, it was all about him. He got so wrapped up in his own little machinations that anything that was going on around him had to be about him. And so he instigated by going out there and with a little skirmish band and kind of pointing the Stormcast towards him. He went out there and instigated the events that led to his own demise. He flicked that first domino in a series of events. And it's all because of his paranoia. And I don't know about you, but when I think about a Tzeentchian cult, that's exactly what I think. I think about a little scheming guy. He's all skinny and gaunt and very paranoid, but he's also extremely powerful. The battle scenes with Ephryx in them are all incredible because things are transmuting all around him. It's made very clear that he is, in fact, a very powerful sorcerer, and I can't overstate that enough. And as a character, being introduced so early on when we were still trying to understand the realms and the lore and all that kind of stuff, he was sort of our gateway to Chamon. All of the locations that are relevant to his past, the cities we mentioned, become really important later on. And in fact, in one of the General's Handbooks, there is a campaign set in Alexia, which you can actually take part in. It's very cool. Like, he was, like I said, sort of like a introduction to the realm of metal. He also displayed a lot of transmutative magics, which had a lot of effect on the Stormcast Eternals, showing us what Tzeentch's influence meant for the realms, and the environments that he brought us to, though strange and mystical, were so exciting, like rivers of liquid silver and all that kind of stuff. It was really, he kind of acted as sort of a beacon we can follow, right? Like, he was the main story arc when it came to Chamon, and it just introduced us to the realm in a very cool way. That this is a broken place. It's all about magics and transmutative properties and just weird abstract stuff of what the realm of metal could be. And for all of that, I think Ephryx, I want you to come back. GW, please give me Ephryx. I would love that. Thank you so much. I think a perfect model for him, to be honest with you, is the Sorcerer on disc that came out with I think it's the Ether War set, when they had Tzeentch versus the KO. That box had a unique Tzeentch Lord on disc there. It was a little more human looking. He's not a Zangor on disc kind of a thing. But I think that would be the perfect model to represent Ephryx. Anyway, let me know your thoughts down below. If you were not here during the, or part of the discussion for Age of Sigmar when the game first dropped, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are based on what I shared here. And of course, go check out the Rumgate War series if you want to learn more. If you were around during the launch of Age of Sigmar and you know this character, you remember it a bit, tell me, what do you like or dislike about him? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below, and I'll catch you there. Thank you all so much for watching, and happy wargaming. Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed that video. It was made possible by the folks over here to the left. These are my top supporters over here on YouTube and on Patreon that keep this channel going. If you'd like to learn more about how to become a supporter and get some cool things in the process, like exclusive pictures and interactions with me, and get your questions answered here on the channel, go ahead and click any of the links down below or the join button on the community page over on YouTube. Regardless of your choice, I wanted to thank you so much for joining me with this video, and I look forward to seeing you in my next one. Happy wargaming.